Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head to Russia once again, and this is yet another of the beers that my friend Hannah brought back with her from her trip to Moscow. For this review though we have one that is half Russian, half Norwegian, and I'm really curious to see how this one turns out. So for the Russian side of things we are going to head to St. Petersburg and we're having a taste of my first beer from AF Brew, and the Norwegian side of things is Lervig Aktiebryggeri, who come from Stavanger in Norway, and you've seen me review numerous things from these guys before. So this particular beer is called Fear of the Zephyr, and they're describing it as a Russian marshmallow and maple syrup imperial stout. It comes in at 10% ABV, and you know, it should be really quite interesting, this one. I mean, the last one that I tried from Lervig that was an imperial stout, I had the three bean stout, and then I also had one that was like Saskatoon cheesecake or something like that, which was really nice. So Lervig have a little bit of a habit of doing these kind of dessert style imperial stouts, so I guess this is just the next kind of sort of next step in that little series that they're doing. So really curious to see how this one turns out. AF Brew, of course, are one of these Russian breweries that have a very, very good reputation, so it's cool to do my first review involving them as well. As I've told you before, the standard of Russian beer I know is very, very good, but we just don't really see very many other beers making it into the EU and things like that, and hopefully that's something that can change in the fairly near future. But yeah, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, it's the link to my future reviews that hopefully I could do from AF Brew. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, of course. There's a link there to all the other reviews that I've done from Lervig Aktiebryggeri, and I'm sure I'll add something from them in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Russian beers that I've reviewed for you, and one for all the Norwegian beers. This beer will appear in both of those since it is half and half, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely, hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, and we'll tell you first off a little bit about AF Brew, since these guys are the home brewery. So AF Brew, as I mentioned to you earlier, are based in St. Petersburg, which is actually the biggest city in Russia, and they were founded back in 2012 by Nikita Filippov, Dmitry Buldakov and Artem Kolchikov. So they previously worked for Baltica, and they were really interested in just experimental beers, and they say there was a little bit of a kind of witch hunt for them when they started brewing these small batch 500 litre beers, because they still worked for this big company, and apparently they received an appointment with the CEO who told them they had to immediately stop brewing these beers because it was a threat to the company. But because of this they decided to leave their jobs. They started off as gypsy brewers, so they brewed their beers at a lot of other places in and around St. Petersburg, and eventually they built their own brewery, which opened up in November of 2016, and this brewery also has an on-site tap room, and they also own the Red Rum bar in the city as well, where you can find a lot of these beers on tap. But the AF actually stands for anti-factory, because they liked how beer can really give you an escape from all the everyday kind of problems and things that you're going to have, so they went for this name, Anti-Factory, on that basis. But as of September 2019, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced over 150 different types of beers, and as I mentioned to you earlier, these guys are considered one of the really pioneering Russian craft beer breweries, so definitely one that you want to check out if you find yourself in Russia. And St. Petersburg, from what I hear, is a very, very beautiful city. It's somewhere that's on my list to visit in the next few years too. As I say, as I've always told you, Russia, very fascinating country, a lot of turbulent history and things like that, so definitely a place that I would love to go and visit. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about AF Brew for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the description below, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. That'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on. And if you're interested in the different beers and things they do, I would recommend you check out the Untapped and the Rate Beer pages. So anyway, on to the Norwegian side of this brewery then, down on the notes again. So Lervig Aktiebryggeri, these guys are a brewery you've seen me review before. As I've told you, these guys are based in Stavanger in southwestern Norway, and the company was founded back in 2003 after the Toa brewery was sold to Carlsberg, and then subsequently production of the Toa beers was moved down to Oslo. For a while though, the beers were produced at Mackville Brewery in Tromsø. However, However, production was then moved to Heelvoog in Stavanger back in 2005. The head brewer for Lervig is Mike Murphy, and he's been there since around 2010. And prior to this, the brewery were making, you know, many light lagers and things like this, but Mike moved them more towards making the American style craft beers, and this is where they've really made their name. But Mike had played quite an important role in the Danish craft beer revolution, and he'd collaborated with several of, you know, the renowned brewers down there, such as Mikkel and Jeppe Bjergso, Sean Hill, of course, from Hill Farmstead, and then Andreas Kiesmeyer as well, who was involved at Nürburgring Brewhaus. But he also worked for Beer del Borgo in Italy for a little while, but he now owns 5% of the brewery, and the main owner of the company is Christopher Stensrud, who owns 67% of the shares, and in total, the Lervig Brewery now exports 20% of all of the beers exported from Norway, which is really quite impressive for a craft brewery if you think about it. But they're probably one of the more recognisable Norwegian craft beer names these days. Of course, you had Nøgne who with Kjetil Jikjøen, who started off a lot of the revolution in Norway. But you know, Lervig Brewery have since kind of taken up that mantle. And I guess the other big brewery that you'll all recognise from Norway would be Amundsen Brewery these days. So yeah, Lervig Brewery, Amundsen Brewery, those are the two big names when it comes to Norwegian craft beer. But there's a hell of a lot of good little breweries kind of popping up around Norway these days. I don't know how many they've got. They must have about 300 breweries up there now. So yeah, Norwegian beers, very good quality, just like the Swedish and Danish ones that I have more experience of. So if you get the chance, check out some of them and go and visit some of the Norwegian beer, brew pubs and stuff like that. It is very expensive, but definitely worth it for the experience. A very beautiful country with very nice people. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Lervig Brewery as well. Again, if you want to learn more, check out the brewery website, follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out all the different beers and things that they've produced, both on Rate Beer and on their Untapped pages. But yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one is a 10% Imperial Stout, and the interesting thing about this beer is that it's modelled on a Russian dessert. So I wrote down a little definition of what Zephyr actually is. So basically this beer, it's kind of like, it's almost like a Russian marshmallow if you like it. They basically make it from whipping up fruit and berries together with sugar and white eggs, and they put in some congealing agents, and it gives you this almost marshmallow like this kind of dessert thing. It really looks, it's like almost raw marshmallow dough or something that it looks like if you Google the pictures of it. So it's really unusual, mainly eaten in Russia, but I know that some of the former Soviet countries also quite like it as well. So like I say, this seems to be another in the series of Lervig's dessert stouts, if you like. So hopefully it's a good beer. It says on the back here, Lobotomy Day is not just a yearly ball for all the champions and queens of the craft beer scene. It is the time and place for the birth of collaborations top notch of the brewing art and off-the-wall beer sprouts of collision of various schools and practices, table talks and funny gives and takes. You're holding one of the 5 beers from the pilot season of Lobo Day Collabs. So, yeah. So, kind of interesting that. But as you can see, quite nicely presented. I think I'll need to keep this can. I'll be keeping the Russian cans that I've had because, as I say, Russian craft beer is pretty rare. But this one is a little 330ml can. There you can see at the top, there it is, the AF Brew symbol, along with the Lervig Brewery star. But yeah, really nicely presented. The one thing I would say about this beer is, if you get a can of this, feel how heavy it is. This beer is ridiculously dense. It is absolutely crazy. I don't think I've ever come across a 330ml can that is this heavy. You know, it could be like a tin of beans or something. If you threw this at somebody, it would absolutely knock them out. But yeah, nicely presented beer, this one. So without further ado, let's get it out and we will get on with the tasting. A 10% Russian marshmallow and maple syrup Imperial Stout. So yeah. Oh, a little bit of it has escaped, and there we are. It's pretty much full to the brim, this one. I think it was actually, it's probably even just been filled a little bit too much. But more beer, who cares? So let's get it out and into the glass. Yeah. So, as you would expect from an Imperial Stout, this one has poured a lovely dark ebony rosewood colour. If I hold, you can smell some of that lovely chocolatey stuff coming out of it. But yeah, if I hold this beer up to the light, it actually does have a very, very dark ruby edge to it. You can see some of the light just coming through this beer. You're not going to be able to see that very well on the caramel, but trust me, this beer does have a little bit of a ruby edge to it. It's not even Coca-Cola coloured, it's a really quite bright ruby colour, this one. There's a good 1/3 finger of a frothy, quite dark tan head on this beer. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, quite a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of that head there, but you know, overall it looks pretty nice. Nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance. I can't really tell whether it would be clear if it was a bit lighter in colour, but it looks absolutely lovely. So yeah, let's take a closer look at that aroma then and just see how we got. And you can really see how thick this beer is from how little it's moving around. But let's take a look at that aroma and just see how we get on. Oh, yeah, this beer, that is an absolute monster. That really is crazy, this beer. Straight away with this one, you're going to notice the lovely kind of brown sugar notes that this beer has. It's there's a good mix of things going on in here. It's got a very toasty base to it, but the brown sugars really are quite sweet. A lot of rich caramel in there, definitely some lighter, you can really pick up those lighter maple syrupy notes in there as well. Very lightly toasted. The brown sugars, like I say, really lean towards that kind of sweet side of things, but you can definitely smell that this beer, you can really smell that sort of marshmallowy, doughy quality in there. And I'm curious as to how they've done this. I mean, going by how heavy this beer is, I've got a feeling that they probably will have put proper marshmallow into this beer rather than using the flavour essences as some of the other brewers like Omnipollo, for example, do. And this one, I think, is, you know, the real deal. I think it really has a hell of a lot of maple syrup in it, along with a hell of a lot of marshmallow. But yeah, you can really smell that nice maple syrupy quality in there. There is a little bit of a kind of chocolatey note to this one, and it almost kind of blends in with that really big syrupy brown sugary quality that's in there. But yeah, the marshmallows are kind of dominating the base of the beer. The brown sugars are pushing their way out. There's a little touch of a kind of woody, nutty quality blending into the undertones with this beer. Yeah, definitely some vanilla in there too, which is quite nice. On the hoppy side of things, not much to report there. Maybe a teensy bit of earthiness, a little bit of grassiness and things like that, but the hops are very much taking a back seat in this beer. The fruitiness is somewhere else where there's a hell of a lot of complexity. A little hair on the edge of my glass there, but the fruitiness in this one is really nice. I mean, you can definitely pick up a little bit of a sharper, raisiny kind of plummy note to the beer. Very, very juicy, figgy, a little bit of blackcurranty, blackberry qualities in there too, which is nice. Yeah, this beer just comes across really, really very nicely. Yeah, definitely raisins and plums in the beginning. Juicier sort of figs and blueberries and blackberries the further you go into the aftertaste. There's not really any dates or kind of pruny or cakey qualities to this one. It's a little bit sharp in the beginning, but then it just kind of rolls out to be a little bit more of a kind of juicy, berryish sort of imperial stout, this one. So, as I always say, take a bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But let's have a taste of this one then and see how we got on. This one is the Fear of the Zephyr, a collaboration brew between AF Brew in St. Petersburg in Russia and Lervig Arte Brewery from Stavanger in Norway. Let's get stuck into this one. Thank you again to Hannah for making this review possible, and a big shout out to the guys at the Dogma beer shop in Moscow. Let's get stuck in. Slanje, skål, na zdravie. That's really bloody good. Yeah. If you get the chance to try this beer, just have a go at it. That is really, really quite nice. It still amazes me how heavy this beer is, just how heavy the liquid is. It's not heavy to drink, but you can really feel the density of this beer when it's sitting in your glass. But that's a beautiful, beautiful beer. It's really interesting how all the flavours in this one go together as well. So you can feel that nice sort of woody base. That just blankets the middle of your tongue. It does have an almost oaky, woody smoothness to it. There's a hell of a lot of a kind of... It's got a good bit of chocolate there just sitting on top of the wood, and it's like a light sort of milky chocolate. And if you go to the centre of the palate and then move forward, you've got some nice... You've definitely got a nice little bit of a nutty quality there. You can really feel that marshmallowy note. Just, it's almost like in the middle of your tongue you just dab a blob of marshmallow right on the top of it. You can really feel those marshmallowy flavours coming out very, very nicely. And then in the centre of your palate, that's where all the brown sugar is coming out. Yeah. So for me, the brown sugars in the middle of your palate, there's definitely that nice kind of oily, sweet, caramelly quality to this one. But as you move further out from the centre of your palate, that's when it starts to taste a little bit more like maple syrup. So I'm guessing that the boozy elements of this beer, it is 10% alcohol after all. The boozier brown sugary elements are sitting there in the middle of your palate, and as you come further out from the centre, you start to get the kind of lighter maple syrupy qualities there. It's almost like if you put a bit of caramel sauce on top of an ice cream cone and then bite it. That's the sort of flavour that you're getting out of this one. The maple syrup is really kind of apparent in this one. But to me, the flavour of this beer definitely feels very, very layered. So at the bottom, you've got that smooth, woody quality. On top of that, you've got those nice kind of milky chocolate notes, the marshmallows sitting on top of that, and then the brown sugars are even a little bit further on top of that. As I say, if you go forward from the centre of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a kind of nutty quality. For me, there's more and more vanilla coming out of this beer the further you go into the aftertaste as well. And it's nice, it really is nice how that just goes together. There's almost, if you go to the front corners of your palate, then move in a little bit, there is almost just a little touch of a kind of woody undertone to this beer as well. The way the malt base, and or the adjuncts as well, the way the malts and the adjuncts are interacting in this one is really, really very nice. It is like that Saskatoon blueberry cheesecake one that I had before from Lervig Active Brewery. It's on the same level as that, and maybe even a bit better, to be honest, and that is a hard beer to beat. I mean, if you're comparing this beer to others, if you like the big Omnipollo Imperial Stouts like Noah, Yellow Belly, these kind of things, this is a beer that's definitely going to tick all those boxes for you. So have a go at it for yourself. So yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, yeah, there's not too much to report in this one. You can pick up a little bit of earthiness in the back corners of your palate. That smooths out as you come forward. Maybe there's a teeny little bit of a floral quality on the front corners of the tongue, and then round the front curve of the palate it's just that little bit lighter and grassy. And of course behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get those nice juicy fruity esters that will be coming out of the hops in this one. I'm guessing the hops they've used in this, it might be a little bit of you know, it may well be a little bit like Bramling's Cross or Williamette or something like that in this one, to give you these lovely red fruity flavours. So in the beginning, I would say there's a little teeny bit of a kind of raisiny sharpness to the beer, but it really smooths out very nicely and gets into these more berry qualities. So yeah, a little bit of a raisiny, plummy sharpness in the beginning, really rolls out from that. Some nice juicy figgy notes, definitely a little bit datey and pruny, to be honest with you. And then the further you go into the aftertaste, it evolves to be a little bit more kind of blackcurranty, blackberry, and a little bit sort of figgy as well. But the way all of these flavours go together is really nice. The lingering kind of flavours into the aftertaste, a little bit of the marshmallows there, the maple syrups there, and then the juicy fruity qualities as well. Really is just very well done. So big thumbs up to both AF Brew rather and Lervig Active Brewery. They've both done an awesome job of this beer. I still can't believe how much it actually weighs, the liquid itself, but an awesome, awesome beer. In terms of the mouthfeel then, yeah, definitely a full-bodied beer. It's not the most full-bodied beer you're going to come across, Big oily mouthfeel. Carbonation is virtually non-existent in this, to be honest with you. There's very, very little carbonation in this beer. Just a big oily liquid, this one. In terms of the malt base, really, really very sweet. Doesn't really dry out very much at all. No matter how far you go into the aftertaste, it really is just a very big, sweet, oily malt base that's in this one. Of course, you've got the adjuncts interacting there as well. Not very much in the way of hoppy character, it's quite minimal. I'd be surprised, you'd be lucky to get 10 IBUs out of this beer, to be honest with you. It's a very, very sweet Imperial Stout, this one, but the name kind of indicates to you that it's going to be like that. And there's also some lovely juicy fruity qualities. A teeny bit sharp in the beginning, but really more of a juicy fruity quality there. But overall, just a beautiful beer in terms of its flavour, this one, and I have to say hats off to both breweries. They've done an awesome job with this. So yeah, let's just leave it at that for this one. It really is very, very well done. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Lervig and from AF Brew. I'm sure I'll return to both of these breweries at some point in the future, but it's more likely that I'll be able to review some Lervig stuff before I can do more AF brews. Hopefully I can do more Russian reviews generally, because I know the quality of their beer is very, very good. But this one's been awesome. If you like the kind of big, sweet, dessert type stouts that you get from Omnipollo and Dugas Brewery and things like that, this is one that you definitely want to get on your list and have a go at, because I think they've done an awesome job here. So thank you again to Hannah for bringing this one. Thank you to the guys at Dogma Tap Room for recommending it. It's been awesome to review this for you, and I hope you've enjoyed my take on it. So until the next time, Slanger just now, and I'll catch you guys very soon. This one is the Fear of the Zephyr, a Russian marshmallow and maple syrup Imperial Stout at 10% ABV from AF Brew in St. Petersburg in Russia and Lervig Active Brewery from Stavanger in Norway. Until the next time, Slanger just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slanger, skål, na zdravie, cheers.